Everyone, welcome. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah Ibraheem, chapter 14, verses 7 to 12. If you remember, in our previous presentation, we covered verses 1 to 6. And these are the references, and this is our contact in case of any query, comment, or question. Now, recap so far. What I've done over here is I've jotted down some salient points from our first presentation of verses 1 to 6. First one is the Quran helps us to come out of the zulmat, that is darknesses, of the human world into nur, that is light. We start to see the reality of human issues of life. These zulmat and their consequences are noted in the Quran. So zulmat means there is a darkness, and these darknesses are more related to human psyche. So if we use the Quranic light, then not only that we can see those darknesses clearly, but we can remove them using the Quranic value system. One way to recognize their effects is to look at human history. For example, the account of Bani Israel and their condition under Pharaoh. As we know, it presents some kind of a historical example just to illustrate the importance of that particular value which is being discussed. Though it is in Arabic, that is Quran, though is in Arabic, for the initial nation being addressed, because it was addressed to Arabians, the Quran needs to be communicated to the whole of mankind, and for this it requires the help of those who have understood it as a system of deen. Because it is for the non-Arabic people in the world, and they have to be communicated Allah's Wahi, then for that, those who understand the Quran, then they have to pass it on to others, then to explain it to others. The books by Allama Ghulam Ahmad Parvez, which are in Urdu, assist in this respect. So a great favor has been done by Allama Parvez that he has gone through the Quran as a system of deen, so that all the zulmat and darknesses which prevail through because of the man-devised system, those could be removed. Some of these books are now available in English, and after learning ourselves, we need to draw the attention of others to these to benefit from their publication. English is more or less an international language, and because these have been translated into English, and we got now sufficient number of books which can help to understand the fundamentals of deen. While the laws of Allah function in both the outer universe as well as in the human world, we do not, however, move our attention to the human world, and instead live life under systems based on laws formed by human beings. The Quran has stated that such a world will always be based on fear and grief. This fact is evidence-based. This can be changed through the light of the guidance of the Quran. Next one is the pharaohs of the world who hold power in their hands, because they acquire this when there is no Momineen. So we should keep it in mind that if Pharaoh is ruling the world, the whole of the world, as at present time, that means there is no Momineen which is there physically to resist it and to have an alternative system. They enslave mankind, and as a consequence, those latent human potentials which man is endowed with cannot be manifested, as a result of which most of mankind leaves this life without bringing out their best. This is the darkness which needs to be comprehended using the light of the Quran. We have gone over these points many times, and it is good to reiterate that we have certain potentials, and these potentials, we cannot bring them out unless we follow the Quran. Without the Quran, the potentials which come out are fine. They are good for living this physical life without the guidance of the Quran. But additional potentials which are kept within us, those latent potentials within us, cannot come out unless we use the light of the Quran. Next verse is 14:7, bringing the best out of our existence as a human being. وَإِسْتَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَإِنْ كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. And your Rabb made it very clear to you that the purpose of this great revolution is that those opportunities become created for you so that you could develop your potentials. If you did this and brought these abilities into correct usage according to our program, then whatever you have achieved will keep on increasing. But if you did not do this and did not value whatever you received, then the consequence of this will be severe destruction and ruin. Now, further elaboration of this verse. First is following on from verse 14:6. Where the action by Pharaoh was outlined, here the Quran draws our attention to the fact that our life is not merely a physical existence, i.e. to be born, then brought up under a man-devised system, thinking this to be the reality of life, conforming to the majority, holding some religious beliefs, never thinking about the purpose of human creation, which includes our own creation, and then dying. Living this worldly life as if it ends with physical death. This is animalistic way of life, and we keep making wrong choices in life. No guidance or way leads to such a mode of life. Now next is to view our existence as a human being without any purpose is batil. So this is an important point, that to view our existence as a human being without any purpose is batil, because then we cannot bring out our best. The man-devised system does help to bring out many creative potentials through analytical thinking where available. But this too is not available to every Bani Adam. However, there is far more to human potentials than what is witnessed selectively under non-Quranic systems. So we do act creatively within a man-devised system. There is no doubt in that. As far as physical existence is concerned, we have tremendous improvement in conveniences of life. But the utilization of these conveniences and their distribution is a main issue here. And for that, we need those potentials manifested within us, which are based on the guidance of the Quran. Here, 3 points stand out for us to reflect on. Firstly, acquire the divine attribute of Rabb, and then see what is needed in the world in relation to the whole of humanity, i.e. move away from the narrow interest of our own needs. This is a step in emergent evolution. It's a big step coming to the Quran, so we should not undervalue our attention, our direction, our seeking guidance from the Quran. This essentially changes our outlook right at the outset. Secondly, if we manifest all that we have for the good of others, then watch it multiply. So it doesn't remain static. Once we have come to the Quran and we keep making an effort to expand the horizon of our consciousness, then it keeps multiplying. And that comes out in this verse, especially in terms of giving vastness to our consciousness to see the world in the way the Quran invites us to. And this is all given in the Quran, that when our consciousness expands, what will happen to our consciousness? How will it see the things? We have seen it in Hazrat Yusuf's case, that how did he view the life under Pharaoh at that point in time, under the king, and how the things changed. Thirdly, if we make a choice not to pay attention to it, then many of our unexplored and latent potentials will remain dormant, and we will die without knowing all that we were endowed with. Hence, there is nothing in the hereafter. So if we fail to bring out those potentials, and this comes out in this verse, that if we fail to bring that out, then loss is ours. Then we have essentially not made use of our life over here optimally. And since life in the hereafter is going to be based on what we do here and how we develop ourselves, then we will have a great loss. Just to recap, وَإِذْ تَعَذَّنَا رَبُّكُمْ لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَا أَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَا إِنْ كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. So over here, see why I'm sharing it again, this verse, because over here Shukr and Kufr are placed opposite to each other. So it makes the meaning of Shukr very clear. Then all that which is under Kufr, we have to go against it, and that will serve as Shukr. And Quran says that it will increase. La azidannakum, because as our faculties of understanding and consciousness increase, so will the vastness of our consciousness will also increase, and we will be able to see human existence in a far, far bigger way than we see it in a narrow way. That is, the reality as a whole will appear before us. And if we don't do it, then azabi la shadid means our life will not be a good one. 14.8. The Quran is about human potentials and their expressions. وَقَالَ مُوسَى إِن تَكْفُرُوا أَنْتُمْ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. I've highlighted some of the important points. Takfuru, Musa said that if you deny all that which is given in Wahi, then you will have problems. Consequently, whilst making this clear, Moses stated to them that if you do not value these bounties of Allah, then not only you, but even if people in the whole world adopt a path of indifference, and adopting this path of indifference is kufr. That is, If we have a rational way of thinking and we have a potential to think or reason and we do not use it the way we are expected to use it or the way it is meant to be used, then essentially we are doing kufr. And this is one aspect of it. This will make no difference to Allah. It will be the people themselves who will suffer ruin. He does not need your gratitude. The whole universe is living proof of admiration of Him. Hence, whatever things He is asking of you are for your own good. In deen, we go from ourselves, from our own self towards Allah, not the other way around. In religion, people concentrate more on pleasing Allah or whatever God they have created in their own mind. But when deen, we go from our own self towards Allah because it is the self-development which is the most important entity we have, and that is the aim of our creation. Next is our life's seriousness demands focus and profound reflection. That is elaboration of this verse. In the religious world, man looks for ways and means to please his deities. All these rituals are manifestation of these beliefs that God needs to be pleased. The Quran has presented the factual concept of Allah, which is based on the divine attributes and on numerous signs to which the Quran has repeatedly drawn our attention. Because over here we have something to do. Manifesting divine attributes within ourselves needs effort, needs rational thinking and reasoning. And once we are convinced, then we will tread on this path, and the results of that path, that is Sirat al-Mustaqim, become manifested before our own eyes. Here from the lips of Moses, Allah has drawn our attention to a few more aspects. If for any reason our mind goes towards this, that what is noted in the Quran will somehow benefit Allah, Allah has made it crystal clear that it is in our own interest to ponder over the issues of our life in this worldly existence. So the whole issue is to concentrate on our own self with Allah as a model, His divine attributes serving as a criteria. The book is about us, and Quran says, لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Because the whole of the Quran is our dhikr. It is for our own eminence, for our own elevation. And we can grasp it by using our intellect. We are asked to think hard that even if the whole world denies the existence of Allah, the higher purpose of life in this worldly life, the life of the hereafter, the Quranic guidance, it will make zero difference to the outer physical world. Everything follows laws, including our physical body. The only loser will be each one of us, i.e., we will have failed to acquire a new life for ourselves, which can go on to the next life for further development. No desire for the hereafter, that is, if there is no desire for the hereafter, it is equal to hence no hereafter. It is that simple. If I did not consider hereafter in the way I lived this life, then essentially I don't have hereafter. Because if I don't desire, if I don't wish for something, I'm not going to get it. Our latent potential will remain unexplored. The two attributes are noted here are La Ghaniyun Hamid, are for those of us who wish to develop themselves, i.e. by understanding this. Firstly, we understand the importance of making our system sustainable. That comes under La Ghaniyun, that comes under Ghaniyun. And second is whereby we can meet all needs. And secondly, we reach that state of accomplishments where others are attracted by its benefits and bounties in the world. Because others have to appreciate it. First, we appreciate it by becoming Ghani, and then others have to appreciate it. So these are two important aspects, two important attributes of human self, which needs to be acquired and manifested. Next is 14.9. We need to learn from history. Alam yatikum naba'ul lazina min qablikum qawmin Nuhin wa Adin wa Samuda wal lazina min ba'dihim la ya'lamuhum illallah. جاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات فردوا أيديهم في أفواههم وقالوا إنا كفرنا بما أرسلتم به وإنا لفي شك مما تدعوننا إليه مريب. Moses also stated to them that, have you not heard what happened to those nations which have gone before you? The people of Noah, Ad, Thamud, and many nations who came after them. Those circumstances are not preserved in history, only Allah knows about them. So important point over here is that we should have some good knowledge of our own history. So since that time when the Quran was revealed, a lot has gone in the world, and we should have some idea that how the world has progressed up to this point in time where we are in 21st century. Their messengers came to them bringing clear laws, but these people opposed them fiercely and made every possible effort that their voice should not be heard and their message should not be able to progress. They announced clearly to these messengers that we are not ready to accept the message you have brought, and we have absolutely no trust in the truth and success of the system towards which you invite us. Severe doubts and misgivings keep arising in our hearts about it. Very important, what I've done is I have listed these in 3 paragraphs, and we will look at these in slightly more detail now. Human history serves as a source of strength for Momineen. First is here the Quran has drawn our attention to those aspects of human history relating to the values of the Quran as examples to strengthen our hearts. People live their life on a certain pattern and get used to it for centuries. The majority suffers while a tiny minority hold the reins of power, benefit at the expense of the majority. And we can witness it for centuries. This is happening in the world. As far as this worldly life goes, this majority becomes accustomed to this suffering and thinks that nothing can change in the world. Hence, just accept it and conform to the majority. In fact, the majority not only accepts it willingly, but justifies this suffering via religious beliefs because they don't want to make an effort. When they see that if they have to stand up against the system, then there's an effort required. And they say it is better to justify it, bring out some kind of a reasoning, oh, this is the world we have got, what can I do? And we keep suffering and never stand up against it. They do not use their intellect and reasoning. And the Quran here gives us hope that you are not alone. If you stand up for the values which the Quran has given us, then we will get Allah's help. And what we need to do is, to the best of our ability, keep making effort. At this point, Allah sent His messengers with His Wahi, which proclaimed loudly and clearly that people do not need to live like this. There is a better way of doing things, and no man has the right to enslave another fellow human being. This is against human respect and dignity. Only follow those laws and values given by Wahi, and your suffering will disappear. That is, you will not have any fear and grief. Of course, this is related to the system of Deen. But at least when the system of Deen has not arrived, we should understand the source of this khawf and huzn in the world. Because understanding that means that our psyche will understand that why do we need the system of Deen and what all is required to do it. That is, we will start manifesting divine attributes, and also we will start working within the permanent values. Only Allah knows about them means that by using the Quran, we can figure this out in detail, how the collective decline of people takes place. So wherever Quran says Allah knows it the best, that means it is Momineen who should find out what does Allah know and how can we apply it in our life. We should not just leave it there, leave it to Allah and do nothing in the world. If we keep doing that, then the kind of a world we will get, we all know it. Decline means failing to obtain the best out of each one of us. Doubts and suspicions arise in human hearts when they do not let reality sink deep into their hearts and their intellect remains outside the domain of Allah's Wahi. A very important fact towards which the Quran has drawn our attention is to look at all aspects of human life and then to come to this conclusion: how the law of Requital is ensuring that each of our deeds leaves an imprint on ourselves. If we cannot figure this out, then we will be in a state of uncertainty and doubt. Because facts and knowledge which we gain strengthens us, empowers us, because we know under the law of Requital that everything which is happening in the world has a cause behind it. And if we know the cause, then we will know where we are heading for. That is why Quran says, if you are in Surat al-Mustaqim, it will take you to that destination which is defined for us. And this includes, of course, the Rububiyyat in this life and, of course, the hereafter. But the issue over here at this point in time before us is that should we accept this slavery of the man-devised system willingly, or we stand up against it? And first step is to think about it and understand it. 14:10, Haqq manifests itself when we look for it. قالت رسلهم آفِ الله شق فاطر السماوات والأرض يدعوكم ليغفر لكم من ذنوبكم ويؤخركم إلى أجل مسمى قالوا إن أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا تريدون أن تصدونا عما كانوا يعبدون آباؤنا فأتونا بسلطان مبين. These messengers said to them, do you have doubt about this, that Allah has created the heavens and the earth of this universe? Of course, Quran has presented the whole of the universe as evidence of Allah's creation. Do you doubt the truth and success of the system which is devised by that Allah? And of course, this universe is following certain laws. He is only inviting you to this system so that the means of protection can be produced for you from that destruction which is about to descend upon you as a result of your crimes. And that in this way, for a defined period, you receive an opportunity to benefit from the blessings and prosperities of life. Very important point here that Quran has said, so understanding the laws will define to us that how much time we have and how the things are developing right before our eyes. In reply, they used to say that you are a human being like us, hence this claim of yours that you receive Wahi from Allah is false. And this is a problem with human beings. Even we have seen that even when we give message to those who have a non-Quranic thinking, they look at you and at times they question you that all those before us, you think all of them were wrong. And if we are following this pattern for the last many, many centuries, you think all of these billions of people were wrong. And this is their folly. This is their mistake, because they do not use the Quran as guidance, as criteria. Rather, they use their own desires and some of the mutilated facts of the history as their criteria, because they don't want to come to the Quran. That is the bottom line. Because Quran has very clearly said that when we will go in the hereafter, none of us will be able to say that any injustice has been done to us. You wish to deter us from the obedience and worship of those entities which our forefathers had adopted. So the whole issue is of forefathers, because it's a path of convenience, so that we adopt your way. Furthermore, they said, never mind these arguments and historical evidences. You say that this message of yours will definitely overpower us. Then show it to us by making it overpower us and overpower in such a way that there remains no doubt whatsoever. We will then see what should be done. Because they do not think that the law of requital is working and it will become destruction because of their own deeds, because of the wrong path they are following. Because there is a time of respite between the time we do something and its effects. And collectively, when nations go wrong, it could take centuries before the time of their fall arrives. Keep following the path of forefathers, hampers our progress in this life. So some further reflection on this verse. Pondering on the creation of the universe from nothing can serve as an important sign to develop inquisitiveness in our mind. Here the Quran has posed a question to us that do we have a doubt about it? Can we not witness the existence of the universe around us, whose limits are beyond our imagination? If we don't have intellect and the potential to reason, then this universe will make no sense to us. I.e., if it does not make sense, then we do not have intellect and reasoning. It's very important, this is an important point, that if the universe around us is demanding our intellect and reasoning, that it should apply and increase its consciousness level and then come to the Quran for guidance. And if we don't do it, essentially we are not using our intellect and reasoning. We are only using this intellect and reasoning up to the extent an animal uses it, a physical body that is only meet our animalistic needs. And that is a serious point which we need to think through it. And particularly this is a very good teaching and education point for our children. We are merely passing days just like animals. A great reality is implicit in the statement, Yad'ukum liyaghfir lakum min zunubikum wa yu'akhkhirakum ila ajalin musamma. The Quran is saying that He will provide you protection from all the errors of judgments you might be making. Particularly this aspect is when we initially come to the Quran, because it takes time for us to learn the guidance of the Quran and then apply it. Once we acquire divine attributes and we start functioning within the permanent values, then this aspect it becomes less and less significant. And over here, Quran has beautifully summed it up, a law, a value, that we essentially, whatever destination, whatever aim and objective we have, we essentially head towards that. We look for protection and assurance in our life, and here the Quran is offering it to us by inviting us to its guidance. In a man-devised system, when we are on the path of the Quran making efforts together, these efforts become collective despite being separated geographically when our hearts are united. And unity is very important because Quran again and again asking us is that as a default psychological state of each man is a lot of dissonance. And once we are able to remove that dissonance, then we start coming together because our differences disappear, and a disappearance of differences leads to unity of hearts. And once we have unity of hearts, that means we are using the Quran as a criteria and we are working within its value system. We will at times be facing hardships on this path. Here the Quran has reassured us that the laws of Allah have this assurance within them. Next is when the message of the Quran is shared around, many will not be attracted to it as they do not feel the need to change. If we do not want to change, if we do not feel the need for the Quran, if our desire is not there, then of course it will not appeal to us. It's that simple. And for us, it serves as a standard, as an evidence that we should leave them alone. Due to being beneficiaries of the man-devised system that do not consider this as a possibility or think how can their forefathers be wrong. And we do come across this kind of a statement. You think everyone in the past was wrong, or for centuries they did not know what Islam is or what Quran is. Whatever the reason may be for not coming to the guidance, the instruction for us is to keep pursuing this path of life. If Allah's messengers as human beings could do it, then so can we. Next verse is 14:11. Being human and then being guided by the Quran is a supreme achievement in the world. And this is important for us because Quran is essentially addressing Momineen, those who have accepted its guidance and come on its path. And then it provides guidance that how do you develop yourself with a view to establish the system of being. قالت لهم رسلهم إنا نحن إلا بشر مثلكم ولكن الله يمن على من يشاء من عباده وما كان لنا أن نأتيكم بسلطان إلا بإذن الله وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون. Their messenger said to them that it is correct that we are human beings like you. So messengers of Allah clearly stated to their people that we are exactly human beings like you, because they knew they are human beings and the message is for human beings. But Allah bestows nubuwwat as a blessing on whoever He wishes from amongst His men according to His law of Mashiach. And of course, only one man can get the message and then pass it on to others, and then he can serve as a model because he follows Wahi and let others know that if I can follow, you can follow too. And that is how the message is spread around and it progresses and some kind of a system of being is established. For us actually is a bigger blessing in some ways because we got whole of the Quran. It is not coming to us gradually. And it has already been explained in detail in books by Allama Parvez as a system of being. Now we are building up on this particular foundation, which is as a structure standing in front of us. As far as overpowering and supremacy is concerned, that can only be achieved according to the law of Allah. When that will be achieved, we cannot say, but we are certain that it will definitely occur. We have full iman in the firmness of the law of Allah, and this is not just applicable to us. Any people who have conviction in the truth of the law of Allah have complete and total trust in its firmness. We also experience that when we explain the law of requital to others, then they do show some doubts and suspicion because they are only seeing part of the reality on a very narrow time scale. Whereas Momineen will look at it in a very long time scale, and they know that because of the history and its example before us, we know that human beings, if they are on the wrong path, the wrong results of their deeds will manifest at some point in time. Next, some reflections. We need to recognize the signs of being guided by Allah. Here the Quran has stated in a different style that all messengers are human beings and they follow the guidance of Allah. Hence, every human being can follow the Quran. The Quran here reminds us about our significance as a special creation with choice and intent, who can change the face of the earth by following its guidance. We need to focus on our attributes of choice and intent all the time. And if we look around, there are enough means of sustenance in the earth, in the world, and all we need is their distribution, an equitable distribution using the permanent values of the Quran. And of course, in that distribution, the needs of the self will also be included. Recognizing our own significance as possessors of a self, that is nafs, the Quran has used every kind of technique which can possibly attract our attention. For example, Quran says, فَلَا تَعْلَمُ نَفْسٌ مَا أُخْفِي لَهُم مِّن قُرَّةِ أَعْيُنٍ جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And it's very interesting over here, Quran says, when you follow this path, then those bounties, those blessings will also appear in your life, which you may not have catered for. And those will appear as a pleasant surprise and will also encourage you to keep working on it, because those potentials will come out which you are not aware of. And as those potentials appear before us, you know that you are on the right path, you are on Sirat al-Mustaqim. We have explored some of these aspects in some detail here. For example, in the model of the righteous character of Yusuf, we witnessed an elevated eminence and then reflection of an extremely lofty character. All of that is within the realm of possibility for each one of us. In the model of other Yusuf, and of course, messengers, all messengers of Allah and their companions, there is a great example of encouragement for us. Because, for example, in the case of Yusuf, anyone looking at his life would have thought that when he ended up in the prison, there is nothing for him. That's the end of his life. But he knew there is more to it. And that more did appear later on as he kept following the same path. The Quran helps us to understand our own self and its weaknesses and strengths. When we use its value system as criteria, we come to terms with the reality of our existence, what need to be our goals in life, how to remain firmly committed to the path of Allah, the issues facing us and their impact on us as well as on others. In all this, we remain firm-footed and keep checking with the Quran on a continual basis. The last verse for this presentation, 1412, laws of Allah when followed manifest their effect. وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا وَلَا نَصْبِرَنَّ عَلَى مَا آذَيْتُمُونَا وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. And how can this even happen that we should not trust in the strength of His law when He has unveiled the different paths, subul, of life before us in such a clear way, so that every reality has become clearly manifest before us. It is only this trust in the strength of His law due to which our state is such that whatever hardships you direct towards us, we will bear them with steadfastness and our stance will never falter because of these. Because we should expect opposition to it, and at times at an initial stages we might be slightly discouraged, but as we keep progressing firmly and steadfastly, we come to know that this is the only path and it is definitely Sirat al-Mustaqim. And then we know that this opposition from others is because of their ignorance or because of their arrogance. And whatever the case is, we do not give it up. Because truth, once it comes to us, it makes us or sets us free. When the law of Allah is so firmly established, then anyone who wishes to trust should place his trust in Him. And once this trust is developed and clearly seen, then that is where the life starts becoming more enjoyable and more one becomes, encouraged that we should continue on this and the results will appear at some point in time in the future. Importance of knowing and relying on Allah's laws. The verse starts with a questioning style which alerts our intellect and we pause and think. However, this appeals more to a heart which is ready to listen. And Quran has used this style repeatedly, that is, put a question and then answer it, because that is the way human intellect and reasoning develops. Here the Quran is guiding us on the use of an approach to attract the attention of others. Different paths of life which ultimately join Sirat al-Mustaqim, which then leads us in life together with our fellow companions. Here is another verse which sums it up comprehensively and beautifully. Yahdi bihillahu man ittaba rizwanahu subul as-salam wa yukhrijuhum min al-zulumati ila an-nur bi-iznihi wa yahdihim ila siratin mustaqim. Over here the Quran has again referred to zulumat, to nur, that if you come on this path, then it will take you out of darknesses into light. And of course, with the help of this Quran, wa yahdihim ila siratin mustaqim, and then you will be on this path which is called Sirat al-Mustaqim. And by following this path, we will achieve. That is what integrity means. That is what unity within us means. That is what means that we, all differences get removed. The next part of the verse is La nasbiranna ala ma azaitumuna. That is, we become enabled. We acquire that potential to be able to face to opposition. We will remain steadfast despite the hardships coming to us from your direction. An important point here is to be kept in mind is that the world which is created around us is already causing extreme hardship and grief for Momineen. When we look at the outline of the system of deen, we recognize clearly the unjust systems in the world. Over and above this, when we draw the attention of others, they oppose it and then resort to violence as well. So it is not only that the man-made system is causing us a lot of pain and grief and huzn. This becomes multiplied when we raise the question of not following this path. We tell others that your path is wrong and you are creating these problems for everyone, including us. And we invite them towards the Quran, they become even more violent. They become even more strongly opposing it. And that is something which we need to keep it in mind. And for that, Quran says that you should develop that ability of sabr. And Quran has frequently emphasized on this point. And this is with a view to strengthen our heart, that we are not alone. Allah is with us because He is huwa ma'akum aina ma kuntum. Wherever we are, He is there. For example, He is listening to our presentation today. The verse sums it up by stating that those on this path are not going to give up. As once we embrace Iman and know Haqq, then we know we have made the right choice. Holding on to the rope of Allah is the infinitely strong support which we know will never let us down. Now let us look at some of the potentials about which we are not aware without the Quran. I added this slide because it is good to know that some of the, what are those potentials, or latent potentials about which we refer to in our presentations, and some of these I've jotted down here, and of course we will keep adding to this list. First is we can never be aware of the existence of a self within us which is accountable and has the potential to survive our physical death. So through the study of the Quran, we now are fully aware of the existence of a self within us, and since we are developing it, so we know its strengths as well, and we know its weaknesses as well when we use the Quranic criterion. It starts developing here, and its process of development can be checked in the light of the Quran. It starts getting rid of its darknesses, that is ulma. And it's very easy. If we look at the kind of beliefs we had before coming to the Quran, it will make very clear to us that how we have used Quranic light to get rid of those darknesses. And when we see others holding on to those darknesses, that is what convinces us to pass on the message to them. And as a result, again, our self develops further. We acquire the ability to see the world and its man-devised systems clearly as part of understanding batil. This leads to developing a conviction to strive for haqq. We wish to join those who are already on this path, and that is the platform of TOLU-E-ISLAM. Understanding of the functioning of the law of requital keeps improving as we gather more evidence individually as well as collectively. We start to see the faults and crimes of the human world with its impact on mankind. So it is not only that we see what is wrong with the world, we also see the victims of it. And that potential is of immense value in establishing the system of deen. This understanding keeps on improving, and we reach a point where we know that the only way to extricate ourselves from this predicament is the system of deen. So that potential where we understand now that what is causing the problem. So we diagnose the disease and we know the recipe to treat it. Now the question is how to be in a position of power to be able to do it in some part of the land so that it can serve as a model for others. Forbidding evil and promoting good becomes part of our psyche. We don't let it go. Wherever we have a chance to forbid evil, we do that, and wherever we can promote good by projecting, by sharing the message of the Quran with others, we do it. We can understand the influences which technology has on the human psyche and on the world created based on this technology. That is, we are not carried away by this technology. Smartphone is there to help us to communicate, nothing more. It should not become our deity. It should not become our God, which may make our life easy, lazy, and make more time available to our leisure pursuits. But we lose balance, which is essential in our self-development process. So these conveniences of life, while we are using them, these should not become end in itself. And we should be very conscious of it, that these do not take us away from the guidance of the Quran. We should continue to think that how these can be utilized for the whole of mankind. Having acquired Iman, we focus on Saleh deeds in order to acquire a highly developed self which has full conviction in the Quran, and we never go outside it under the influence of some external compulsion or fear. Very important, continuously, whatever we can do on Saleh deeds, and there was a very good presentation by our Nazim, Taslim Saab, on charity and its relation to the capitalist system. And we should keep it in mind that charities and these individual acts of helping others will never ever solve the problem of yatim and miskeen in the world, because the system we have is creating yatim and miskeen as I speak. So it is important that we should keep it in mind, and that potential to be continuously reminding ourselves is only possible through the Quran. We come to understand this fact, that is a new potential, that hereafter means that human life after death will be different from the existing link of our existence. This is implicit in the term bil akhirah, i.e. it is about future, but a different one. We develop that potential of understanding this fact that our next stage of life will not be exactly what we have lived over here. It will be totally different, because akhirah means it should be different. Even future in this life, if we bring the system of being today, then that will be quite different from the man-device system. It will not be some kind of a patchwork of the man-device system. And finally, over here, I'm going to share some of the quotes from a book, The Rape of Mind. And it's very interesting. I thought this indicates that there are human beings out there who use their intellect and reasoning, and they come to some kind of a conclusion that the path being followed by mankind is wrong. The dangerous paradox in the enhancing of living standard is that by promoting ease, it promotes idleness and slothfulness. So these conveniences, if we do not have permanent values, benefit of permanent values, these conveniences slow down the potentials of human beings. They become lazy. If the mind is not prepared to fill its leisure time with new challenges and new endeavors, new initiatives and new activities, it falls asleep and becomes an automaton. The God automaton devours its own children. It can make a highly specialized primitive being out of us. So essentially what he's saying is that these conveniences, of course, we know it without the permanent values, these are turning people into robots and non-thinking human beings. And such human beings can be directed anywhere by any sheepdog. We begin to picture the mind itself as a computing machine, as a set of electrochemical impulses and actions. The brain is an organ of the body. Its structure and its actions can be studied and examined. But the mind is a very different entity. Though mind is coming out of the brain, but it is not like the brain. We have gone over it in some of our previous presentations, that mind has its own existence. That is why metacognition means thinking about thinking. So this mind which is coming out is aware of its own existence. It is not merely the sum of the physiological processes in the brain. It is a unique creative aspect of human personality. Unless we watch ourselves, unless we become more aware of the serious problems our technology has brought to us, our entire society could turn into a kind of super automated state. And we should keep it in mind that this person, he had written this book back in 1956. So almost 70 years down the line, we can see the worst side of what he has written. Any breakdown of moral awareness of an individual's sense of his own worth makes us more vulnerable to mental question. What he's saying is that we are forgetting that what is our value as a human being, and we are downgrading our own value by being so much involved in these conveniences, and as a result, the spare time available to us, we are wasting it. All this may sound extreme, but the fact remains that any influence, overt or concealed, well or ill-intentioned, which reduces our alertness, our capacity to face reality, our desire to live as active, functioning individuals, to assume responsibility and to face up to danger, takes from us some part of our essential humanity, that quality in us which strives toward freedom and maturity. So essentially he's saying is that we are gradually losing whatever freedom we have and losing and heading towards immaturity. And forced mental intervention practiced by promoters of totalitarianism is deliberate and politically inspired. So the people at the top are aware of it, and they are creating such an environment that all these human beings, they should behave like sheep. And that is why a term has been also coined called sheeple, that people who behave like sheep. But mental intervention is a serious danger, even if its purpose is non-political. Next is any influence which tends to rob man of his free mind can reduce him to robotism. Any influence which destroys the individual can destroy the whole society. And this, I thought, is a very nicely summed up, because he had some kind of a vision. Even we did not have access to the Quran. We can see it, that if an individual is destroyed, the whole society becomes meaningless, because for that individual, that society becomes a sort of a prison in which he cannot use his potentials. It is a tragic aspect of life that man has to place another fallible man between himself and the attainment of his highest ideals. Of course, he doesn't know what highest ideals are, and we are so fortunate that the Quran has defined this highest ideal before us, which is Sirat al-Mustaqim, and keep developing ourselves, keep increasing the vastness of our consciousness. And this is important because he, of course, did not know that we could create new life within us by using the divine attributes and the permanent values. So over here, he is at least pointing to this, that a man is causing problem for another man. And man is the one who is enslaving other human beings. And this is the book, The Rape of Mind by Jules Mirlu. And it was published in 1956. He was a psychiatrist. With that, we come to the end of this presentation. And thanks for listening.